Welcome to the exciting world of my graduate office! Yay! As you can tell, it's very blank, it's very white. There's a whiteboard here. There are some white walls. That's bad. I get a very nice monitor and a laptop, and I have some thrilling textbooks. So the conference was good. I really gained a much better understanding of what I was doing than I had before I left. So before I left, I kind of felt like this.
Have you ever felt like you have absolutely no idea what's going on and that like there are all these things that are happening at the same time and you just aren't prepared for any of them, but everyone else thinks that you're prepared for them, so you like don't want to let them down and tell them you're not prepared for them? Because that's how I feel right now about everything. Like I love grad school, don't get me wrong, but I just have no idea what I'm doing for my thesis and I just don't know where to start, and I just feel like I don't even know how to tell people that I don't know where to start. Like I don't know what I don't know, but I know don't know something. And it's very stressful.
And now that I'm back, I'm like, oh, okay, I have some understanding of what I'm doing. So, in case you guys don't know, basically, this is the idea of my thesis. I'm going to use this as an excuse to practice and see if my pre-proposal actually makes sense, so bear with me if it doesn't. So this is the gopher tortoise. It likes to do gopher tortoise things, like hanging out in burrows, eating food, looking aggressive, that thing. It's considered a keystone species in the southeastern United States because it actually has some pretty useful things in its burrows. A bunch of other species like to use it. But it's listed as threatened in the western part of its range, and it's basically thought to be declining everywhere. The problem is, most gopher tortoises currently use the standard line transect distance sampling, which I'm going to call LTDS, to find tortoises and estimate populations. Basically, you go down a line, there are two side observers, everyone's looking for gopher tortoise burrows. You see how many burrows you find, you measure the distance to the line, and then you make a curve of detection based on distance from the line, and that kind of gives you an idea of how many tortoises there might be in a certain area, and then you multiply that by the number of space in the area versus how much you actually looked at, and good things happen. But it has two known challenges. Firstly, juvenile burrows are really hard to see because they're tiny, and they're also just kind of like holes in the ground. So basically you end up with a systematic underestimation of juvenile populations. And secondly, you get a bunch of vegetation, which is of various heights and inconvenient, especially when you're looking for holes in the ground, and this leads to difficulty detecting burrows at all, and it reduces the precision of our demographic estimates. So recent studies have suggested that basically what you could do is you could burn areas and then do LTDS, and then maybe you'd be able to see things because all the vegetation would be gone, and also burning is really good for the kind of environments that these tortoises live in. But it hasn't yet been widely adopted. So basically, as these tortoise populations continue to decline, we don't have a good standardized method which is going to reliably give us population estimates unless we go to all the trouble of looking for every single gopher tortoise in the area. And that takes a lot of time and a lot of money. So essentially my plan is that I want to go out there and try and see if there's something you could do to estimate habitat cover. If you could say, just a height estimate or some kind of type estimate, just being like, as we're going along, this is what the habitat was. And then you go back and you look at your data and you say, okay, say you do LTDS one time, then you burn, and you do it again. Then you see, okay, where was that habitat really high, and where did we miss burrows? What's the correlation between habitat and detectability? Or, for instance, what I want to do is there are spots where they do really intensive burrow studies. For instance, they are removing all the tortoises in order to develop an area, so they know where all the tortoise burrows are. Or they are studying long-term populations, so they're putting transmitters on all the tortoises or tagging them or that sort of thing. So I want to go and do LTDS in an area and pretend I don't know anything about the area and see what my estimate says and then compare that to the real data. And then I also want to compare before and after fire and kind of see how is habitat affecting detectability and kind of where are our problem areas. So that's part one. Part two is the juveniles. How am I going to find the juveniles? Well, there are a lot of different ways that people have thought of intensive searching for small things. There are people who look for mouse burrows. There are people who look for scat on the ground. There are people who look for ants or something, small objects that they find in groups. And baby tortoises tend to cluster a little bit. It's not entirely clear exactly how much clustering there is, so there's going to have to be some simulation that I'm going to have to do. But if I could simulate a bunch of different types of searching and see which is the most efficient at finding a large number of burrows, then I could maybe suggest a new sampling method for if you were specifically trying to just find juveniles. And if we could have some idea of the percentage of juveniles that we're expecting to get, because right now we don't know, are we not finding juveniles because there's a really low reproduction rate? Are they just not producing babies, which is a big problem? Or Or are we not finding them because we just can't see them? And those are two very separate issues. And so we'd like to have some sort of reliability. So hopefully there will be a lot of simulation, and then I'll go out into the field and I'll try it. And the advantage of all of this is that because I want to like test out these methods in areas where tortoises are already known, I basically can get to go to a bunch of different areas around Florida and Alabama and Georgia, and we'll see kind of what shows up. And, you know, for me, I'm really happy either way, whatever the results are. So hopefully I won't be too biased. So yeah, coming back from the conference, I feel much more secure in what I'm going to do, and I think I have a bit of a game plan. Not really a timeline game plan, but somewhat of a game plan. I also got a cat recently, unrelatedly. He's very cute. His name is Arturo. He's not very happy with being picked up. He really doesn't like to be pet very much, but he will come and snuggle with us. He sleeps on us when we're sleeping in bed. He will come and snuggle. He really likes to stick his face in water glasses and drink from them, or the sink. We've had to close the toilet as well. So he's kind of a doofus. And, you know, we're working out our difficulties. I bought him a cat treat, and he has not once used it. He really doesn't want to use it. He also doesn't want to scratch on the scratching post I bought him, because that would, you know, mean that my money was going to good use. But he was free because someone else paid his adoption fee ahead of time, because he's a 4.5-year-old cat, and I think they felt sorry for him. So I'm happy overall. I'm going to be going to the Jones Ecological Center in a couple of weeks, but until then, just kind of doing classes and trying to get some reading in, and I'm trying to learn as much as I can about tortoises and see what it is that I need to get done. I'm also taking a random course that I found online for how to program in R, because I've kind of taught myself, but I want to do it neatly in a way that I'm not embarrassed when someone else reads my code. And so kind of like relearning some of the things, trying to figure out how I could do simulations of testing on the computer. So yeah, very busy, but I'm feeling pretty good overall. I think I'm going to be okay.